The goal of this podcast is to help you break in and thrive in advertising. And we do that every single week by sharing the stories and advice of those rocking it on the other side. This can help you break into the industry for your first job, help you break through and find that next promotion, or even the marketing professionals out there looking to find their next agency partner. This week, you're going to learn from Katie Hooper. Katie Hooper is the CEO of Notorious111, which is a creative brand studio. She has over 25 years of experience spanning PR, brand marketing, and agency leadership. She even worked at Ralph Lauren. Ralph Lauren is how you pronounce it, actually. But Notorious111 is a boutique creative brand studio which focuses on combining art and science to help brands discover their unique voice and create memorable, impactful marketing solutions. She'll talk about their process in this episode, which is really fun and unique, and how their agency is structured today. Katie is going to demonstrate the importance of curiosity, resilience, and embracing opportunities to learn and adapt, even during challenging transitions. This spoke to me personally as we're launching Breaking Entering full time, and I'm sure it will speak to you as well. You're going to want to connect with Katie. And to do that, connect with her on LinkedIn, listen to this episode, take your time with it, come back to it. You're going to really enjoy it. We worked hard on this and we're excited for you to listen. Now, on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. And as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. Are you tired of the endless struggle to find great strategy and account talent at no single individual? They've redefined freelance support with a team-based model that combines expert strategists and account people and hybrid teams ready to deliver when you need them most. Whether you're covering for family leave, scaling up for a pitch, or filling hiring gaps, no single individual's cohesive, custom curated teams integrate seamlessly with your agency, onboarded in days, not months. With experience spanning agencies of all sizes, no single individual is here to help great teams do great work. Ready to strengthen your talent brain trust? Well, visit nosingleIndividual.com today. All right. Katie Hooper, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm great. It's 2025. We had to reschedule this. And actually, I think things are meant to happen for a reason, because talk about like fresh perspective. Today's my first day back. Hopefully I didn't forget everything like that I've learned in the last 25 years, and I'm ready.
I don't think you'll forget. We'll bring it back too. We'll do a little walk down memory lane and how you got to be the CEO of Notorious111. Is that correct? The pronunciation? Wonderful. So we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about all your lessons throughout your career. Maybe we'll give some advice to other agency professionals too. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Great. So let's kick it off high level. First off, where are you at? How's life today? I see a lot of snow in the background. Where are you calling in from?
Yeah, so I'm calling in from a real live snow globe. I'm excited about it, like a kid. I live in Annapolis, Maryland, and sort of smack in between DC and Baltimore. But we haven't had snow in a couple of years, so this is extremely exciting. We have like a foot of snow today. I am relegated when I'm working from home to what I call my office, but is actually like a porch with no heating or air conditioning. So, it really keeps me alive, this crisp snow globe I'm in.
More alert. Yes.
Yes, sure. Like a cold plunge.
For sure. Yeah. Podcasters talk about the benefits of cold plunging all the time. Yeah. We're not going to get into that unless you want to. But
I mean, who knows where it'll go.
Right. So then can you tell me a little bit about your role today and what Notorious111 is all about?
Yeah. So I am the CEO of Notorious111. I have been technically in the same agency for the better part of 15 years or so, but we have had different stages. We've been privately held. We became a part of WPP. We recently divested and took the company private again, rebranded, and became Notorious111, which we can certainly talk more about. But I think what's cool about sort of where I am now is I have had this opportunity to progress throughout my career, touching a lot of different aspects of expertise, from client service to strategy to ops to leadership. And what I'm loving about being the CEO is I kind of just get to surround myself with people way, way, way smarter than I am at their particular, corners of expertise. And I get to be the conductor of the orchestra, which is super fun and also really hard when you're used to being hands-on in sort of a lot of aspects of working on the creative side. But I'm really enjoying the opportunity to look at the big picture of things and work really hard primarily to make sure I'm shaping and setting a vision for where we need to go in a really saturated, complex landscape.
Yeah, let's get into that. So what is the vision? Like, where are you guys at today? Where do you want to be in the next 5, 10 years? What's your goal?
Yeah. So one of the big challenges, I think, is there are a lot of agency-like objects out there. And having been a part of what do we call ourselves for 15 years, we do everything. It's not great to say you do everything. Back in the day when I first started at HZ, we were a creative agency, and then we sort of started to block on and build new categories associated with what our clients needed. So while we weren't great at paid media, let's give it a try. And then we developed a pretty baller paid media group. Ditto with, web development, for example. And so we were an integrated creative agency, but we would always put it in air quotes because it wasn't cool to say you were an integrated creative agency. And then as we progressed throughout sort of the years, it became clear that we needed to pick a lane. And I do think that that is still a work in progress, but where we are today is we call ourselves a creative brand studio, which maybe I should put in air quotes too, because then everybody will start calling it that. But for us, what that means is we're inspired by, if you think about like Pixar, and I think I've mentioned this to you before, Gino, but there's a really great documentary about Pixar and how it was built and how it grew and sort of the trials and tribulations. But we're inspired by it because what was cool about Pixar was art was constantly inspiring science and science was constantly informing art. And that's how we have constructed our brand studio, with the real clear focus of working with brands that really clearly need some support or evolution or building to articulate who they are, what makes them amazing, and then how can we go out and tell a story about them in a way that nobody else can. So I think it was inspired through this sort of feeling that there's a lot of mediocre content out there. There's a lot of mediocre marketing planning and a lot of sort of advertising and or digital experiences, whatever, that doesn't feel like memorable. It doesn't feel that interesting. And it feels a little bit like check the box. And what we really want to do is work with brands to really sort of crack open who they are and who they can be and figure out that we're delivering the exact right, most interesting message that we possibly can, regardless of how it comes to life. So the idea of the brand is the most important thing that we're doing. We can make anything, much like Pixar. It could be a movie, it could be a show, it could be a podcast, it could be a website, it could be an ad campaign. But if we don't sort of get the heart of what that brand actually stands for right, then we can't do any of it well.
Gotcha. And then how do you come to that process then? Because there's so many ways you can create ads or ad like objects and content that resonates with a brand's consumers. How do you figure out which avenue is the right way to go for that specific client and that specific problem that they have at that moment? Make those decisions.
So this is funny because I'm going to contradict myself. So I don't love when agencies are like, our proprietary process is blah, and they brand, like 20 things within the agency. I feel that that's a little bit showy. Now I'm going to tell you, we have branded our process. We try to brand it in a way that feels logical, like we're trying to explain it. So we have sort of landed on this really cool, again, art intersects science process that we call Giant Leaps. And the reason we call it that is, you could think of it as sort of a strategic brand session, if you will, or an immersion session or a discovery session. But for us, while those are important aspects of getting to know the business and the brand and aspirations, et cetera, what Giant Leaps does is through a really specific way, almost like a choose your own adventure kind of conversation. We invite the key stakeholders of the business. So they are not just marketers. It's hard for non-marketers to think this way, but we need like the CEO, we need the head of sales, we need the team to come into this session and personify the brand. So they really come into the meeting thinking like the brand would think, not like Gino would think, but like the brand itself would think. And through this process and through this sort of unpacking of this choose your own adventure, would you choose this or that? What we end up coming out with is a strategic blueprint for the brand. And the reason it feels so important and so dramatic is it happens not even over the course of an entire day. And the leap that we have taken from when they walk in and they have sort of traditional marketing business goals, which are important, to where they land, really understanding at the core who they are as a brand, how they act, how they speak, how they behave, what they care about, feels dramatic.
Right.
So we go through this process, and out of that, we have really intrinsically understand what that brand wants to be in the world, basically. And then out of that, we go into something that we call vision and vibe, which is really our brand development process. So it could be for a new brand. It could be for a brand that's bringing a new product to market. It could be for a brand that just wants to stand out and feels like it hasn't really been recognized quite yet. And that process is truly what it sounds like. We help that brand, based on the Giant Leap session, start to imagine and physically see and hear how they would talk, how they would look, where they would sound. And so through that process, they start to imagine maybe what their creative platform might be. It could be an ad campaign. That's where we start to get into the making of it, or we at least start to imagine what's possible. So it's a very visual, it's a very sort of tonally exciting type of conversation where we're in it with our brand partners, and they start to see themselves and they start to be like, "Ooh, that would be cool. Can we pull that off?" You can see it's like working when they're starting to tactically think, can we, in our case with the Washington Nationals, fit the mascots into the Metro because they're physically so big. So it is such a unique, having done this for 25 years in lots of places, agency side and client side, I've never seen something so quickly but efficiently really nail the way that a brand could operate in a way that nobody else does.
Totally. This sounds incredible. It sounds like, to me, I could see there being some issues on the brand side. It would definitely reveal there's inconsistencies with the brand vision,
Yes.
right? So it's like getting them all in one place, different stakeholders, not just the marketers who might also be misaligned in some organizations. You're showcasing everybody's true underlying thoughts of what the brand is and what it should be. So you probably have to corral all those opinions and make sure they're all on the same page, which is probably a great exercise at the beginning that everybody should go with.
You're 100% right. And it also brings up a really good point, which is how flexible language can be. So for example, if you end up with a notion associated with your brand that's edgy, the word is edgy and everybody's like, yeah, I'm feeling edgy. Like one CEO's version of edgy might not be another CEO's version of edgy, or better said, a CEO's version of edgy is different than a creative director's vision of edgy. Mm-hmm. So what this does is push on those notions till everybody understands not just like the word, but how does that show up? When we say edgy, when we get to vision and vibe, that's what that looks like, right? Are you ready to have that level of edge, or are you more comfortable here, and will that still make an impact? So the process really forces, in a great way, the sort of it's actually the conversations in between the questions that are the most valuable, because you know, our chief creative officer and our chief strategy officer who lead these sessions are like helping the client to make sure that we're landing where they intend to land, where they will be happy. And where we think the brand can be most successful, which is not necessarily, I've never seen it done this way before, that gets us to where we need to be faster.
Yeah, it seems. And how fast is this process, like, usually? Like, if it's in a usual world, I guess, not a perfect world.
And I think that's a good question, because when I say as fast as possible, like the as possible is really important, because it doesn't mean we're looking to cut corners or, do it fast just to be fast. That's obvious. Everybody's under pressure to do things quickly. But we do, for example, we just started working with a new client. We are heading down Thursday for our Giant Leap session. By the end of the week, we will have sort of articulated what that DNA looks like, if you will. And then we'll probably take from there somewhere between 4 to 8 weeks, depending on the complexity, to net out with the vision and vibe. But within that vision and vibe are real building blocks that we will start to apply. So when we go into those vision and vibe sessions with our clients where it feels collaborative and not like a big dog and pony show, we're able to have a conversation with them where we're already thinking about what might the spring campaign look like as a result of this effort, et cetera, depending on what the needs are.
Yeah.
So it's pretty quick. And then it's just a matter of, again, the making of the thing is what ends up taking the longest. I'm really sensitive, especially to not wasting time. I think we all are. What we make sure we don't do at Notorious is just have a million meetings for no reason, just to keep talking to ourselves, because that makes us and our clients feel good in the moment. But if we're not actually moving the sort of needle forward, or we're delivering actual work, it just feels non-productive.
So now, can you tell me about the structure of the agency and how it's probably conducive for strategists and creatives just to get to work. They have a clear vision. How are they enjoying it? What are you looking for in your teams there within the organization below you, if you can expound on that?
Yeah. So part of the premise of the brand studio versus a traditional agency is we have created a little bit of a flatter structure, is what I'll say. And that makes people nervous because titles and how do I look on LinkedIn and what am I going to do for my next job? Our whole premise is if you come work at Notorious111 and you're able to sort of engage in this creative process with us in the way that we have seen it be successful, your work will speak for itself for whatever it is that you want to do next. That's the goal, is amazing work that actually is making an impact. And when we talk about sort of what our vision as an agency is long-term, is to make radical positive impact. And so that could be on a client's bottom line. That could be on something that's sort of culturally beneficial to our world. There's lots of interpretations that go within there. So to get there, the first step was to really flatten the structure and essentially create what I would think about as sort of 3 orientations. You have the operations side, right? The critically important, who never get credit, people within the agency, finance, HR, people team, ops, who make it all happen. And then you have the creative studio, which is sort of made up of art and story. So think about sort of the conceptual dreaming. How can we really come up with the next version of this team? And then we have the production studio, which are critically essential because they're making all the things. The Keebler elves are figuring out how it is we're going to talk about it and how we're going to show up and what sort of the real strategic imperative is. The production studio gets to make all the stuff and make it even better, and then sort of circle back in this process. So we have the creative studio, and then we have the strategic team, which for us encompasses our marketers, our CRM team, our traditional brand strategists, our data and analytics team, which is critically important to this process. So we're trying to simplify it, if you will, where we have a robust strategy team, a robust creative studio, and then the ops team that's sort of the spine of everything.
Wonderful. Very clear. It sounds great. That's how I would want to run an agency or work for an agency. If I were to go back into that world, I like that.
Come join us, dude. We're always taking genius strategists on board.
Hey, for everybody listening, maybe there's somebody out there. I just started my little baby of break entering, so I got to keep this thing rolling. But we might need to go through an exercise with you all, a giant leap exercise with you all. It seems like that would be efficient and really productive for us. So maybe we'll talk. Okay. But wonderful. So I have to understand now then how you got into all this. The show is called Breaking and Entering. So let's kick it back and understand, when did Katie decide she wanted to make ads for a living or be a part of the ad making process for a living? Were you making collages of ads? Were you watching commercials? What was that moment?
Okay, so this may be an unpopular answer, but I say this like a dad joke, but I mean it. Like, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, because I've never been the type of person that is singularly passionate about a thing. So like, I enjoy so many things. But I really think it's actually sort of my, I'll call it fearlessness, and also my drive that has gotten me to where I am today. So specifically, I've always sort of looked around in the moment for what it is that I love that I'm doing. And then I think to myself, how can I make that a building block? How can I sort of like continue to sort of build that towards a foundation of something that I really enjoy doing, but also that I can like be successful at. I want to be commercially successful. I want to be able to do cool things, and I want to be able to comfortably live. But I also want to be able to leave my campsite a little bit nicer than the way I found it. Like, that's just the mission for me. So when I I mean it when I say like, I have always felt like I'm going to get fired from whatever it is I'm doing forever. So like 15, when I was babysitting and people were literally paying me in coins, I was like, thank you so much. This is such a great opportunity. And in my mind, my 15-year-old mind, I think I was always building this sort of bank of how can I apply this? How can I apply this? I'm also an athlete. So I played high school and college sports, and I was the captains of my teams. So I think I was sort of a natural leader, even though that makes me super cringy to even say, because I don't see myself as feeling like that. I think it's just always been sort of an innate way that I've showed up in every room or every field, as the case may be. Mm-hmm. And then I went to college. I went to a small liberal arts school in Connecticut called Trinity. I played sports there. I had millions of friends. It was like awesome, as many people's college experience is. And I was an English major. And I was sort of ignoring, I'm the oldest in my family, so I was ignoring people around me. Like, what are you going to do with that? Are you going to be a teacher? I'm like, teaching doesn't sound right. No, I don't think so. And then I graduated from Trinity, and I had a really good friend from the field hockey team who had graduated a year before, and she lived in Boston, and she worked at a PR agency. She was like, you should totally come here. I said, what's PR? This was not part of the Trinity Liberal Arts English program training.
Yeah.
And she was like, the cool part is we have amazing happy hours, and you get a gold card when you get here. And I was like, what's a gold card? I mean, this is very exciting times for me. I had lived in Philadelphia. I really had not known a lot outside of that world. And so anything was possible. And I was sort of in the mode of yes. So I interviewed at this PR agency. It was PR agency that represented clients in the high tech space at the time. Specifically, this was 2000. And I'm like, this gig seems fine. I literally interviewed at one place, this place. They offered me a job. I'm like, let's do this. $27,000. I never had more money in my whole entire life. I was living with 1,000 friends in Boston, and like had the best time of my entire life. And then the tech bubble burst, as was a famous sort of 2001, I guess, thing. And then the next thing I know, I was in a conference room with like 20 people being told the other 70 people were being laid off. And that was that. So it was a really difficult time for the agency. I was entry level, again, assumed I was getting fired every day. But then suddenly I was 22 and a VP and like playing solitaire because there was literally nothing to do in the agency. We just didn't have enough clients. So I saw the writing on the wall. Proactively was ready to make a move out of Boston. And I wanted to go to New York because I just felt like that was a credibility stamp that you can't recreate. And I really had no plans as to what that was going to look like, but I had an aspiration to work in the fashion industry. And I moved home for a couple of months to like figure out what that was going to look like. Fast forward, I got an opportunity to work for a job at a place called Cosmetic Executive Women, which is known as CEW. It's a trade organization for women that work in the beauty industry, primarily because, and especially then, but still today, there are very few women that actually work in the senior ranks of the beauty industry, which is a little ridiculous. Just
I agree.
On the face of it, no pun intended. So I jumped into that small organization, was happy to be in New York and just kind of feeling my way through it, took over marketing and membership, learned a ton, had amazing exposure to actually some of the most brilliant, intelligent, women who were these leaders because they were part of the board of
Mhm.
CEW. So I got to like see what it was like for somebody who could present better than anybody I had ever seen before, didn't consult notes, was a natural presenter. So I sort of put that in my little bank. I'm like, ooh, presenting is compelling. People respect her because she knows how to present. Um, and just learned how to be an adult, like learned how to be a corporate, um, functioning, working across multiple disciplines, and also working with different types of managers for better or for worse. So really understanding if I had a manager, both at my first job and my second job, that I didn't think was great, I still did everything I was asked to do and tried to over deliver as much as I could. But again, I banked, this is not how I would manage. Like someday when I'm managing teams, I would not do it this way. And that was just as valuable for me as having some of the best managers. And then from CEW, I got a call from a friend. This is another sort of like secret tip I would sneak in is there are literally there's no limit to the amount of conversations you should be having when it comes to anything pertaining to your career. So take every call, take every meeting, take every coffee. You never know where it will lead. And in my case, it led to an opportunity to build a brand at Ralph Lauren, which was
Nice.
a dream. This was in the Jennifer Aniston Friends. She
Mhm.
worked at Ralph Lauren heyday. My mom to this day is like, remember when you worked at Ralph Lauren? I'm like, I do. I remember.
Incredible.
But I had an opportunity through a friend that I had met and sort of stayed connected to, who was the VP of marketing at Ralph at the time. And she said, we're building a brand called Rugby. Are you interested in coming and running the brand? It's going to be run like a mom and pop. So you're going to pretend you're not at Ralph Lauren. You're not going to have the resources, but it's going to be sort of the cool, like skull and crossbones stepchild if Ralph had a child, a different child. So
Fun.
it was amazing. It was amazing. I don't even know how to describe it. It was amazing.
And so you were running the team for that brand Rugby?
Yeah. So tiny team, like
Mhm.
again, within Ralph Lauren, the corporate environment, we probably had, I would say 15 people running that entire brand. And then we had sort of, so that was the marketing, the buyers, the planners, all the sort of pieces that went into that. And my boss, who was one of my earliest and best mentors, Lucille DeHart, she ran all of marketing for outlets. And then Rugby was like her new project, basically. So she was, I would say, 80% factory outlets focused,
Mhm.
but she loved Rugby, and she and I have to this day a great relationship. So we always had fun with that one. But yeah, it was great.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. And you did that, and then what were some of those lessons you learned on the brand side there? Uh, Tell me
So
all about that. Yeah.
I loved the brand side. You know, still every time I have a moment to reconsider what I'm going to do next, I think
Mhm.
about going back to brand side, because what I appreciated about it was you gain visibility across the entire business in a way that you just can't gain when you're agency side. And so it was just as compelling for me to understand that essentially, and this was the biggest thing I learned, you have the business goals, which is in our case the most relatable Ralph goal, right? Like sell 7 million cable knit sweaters. And the marketing team, in my case, David Lauren, Ralph's son, who ran really all of marketing for Ralph Lauren, his goal was be fucking cool. Like be cool, be known, do stuff that is just unexpected, especially for Ralph Lauren, and market the leather pants. And so the business is sort of annoyed because they want you to market the cable knit sweater, but the brand knows that if you market the leather pants, nobody can afford the leather pants. They're going to buy the cable knit sweater because they feel like they're part of the leather pant vibe.
Got it.
So that was a really, really, I use that to this day as an example of you have to do both, but you have to make sure that you're bringing the business along with you when you're trying to paint the picture of what the strength and the investment in brand can do for the business. It's not always a direct correlation, but there's some magic in there in terms of creating an environment and a story that makes you as the buyer feel like you're a part of a brand in a way that you can access it that doesn't diminish the value of the brand.
Love that. Love that. So that's an incredible lesson right there. And why didn't you want to? Did you want to stay on the brand side? Like, what brought you back to agency landscape?
So interesting again, like just following my gut has sort of been my approach. And I had lived in New York at that point for 5 years. I'm like a running outside, live on the beach, Labrador Retriever kind of person. And I think I just got like a little tired of New York. I was tired of the honking, and I was tired of the schlepping and the subways and all that kind of thing. And I'm like, this is good. This was great. Also, I could live here forever. And I think I would always have roommates, and I would be out every single night. And I just want to try something different. So I also at the same time, which I think is also important for people to know, like I had stuff going on personally. My dad was going through the process of dying. He had cancer and ultimately passed away. And I needed a minute, like even at that point in my career, and I was probably, I don't know, only 28 or so. I was like, I think I need a minute. I need a minute to regroup, and I need a minute to just disconnect. And it's not going to mean the end of the world. It's very sort of understandable, but I want to make sure like whatever I do next, I'm showing up the best I can show up to be. Yeah. So I moved home to Philly, grieved, got a puppy, Labrador, as promised on my brand.
What's the name? What was the name?
Her name was Finny. Finny the Labrador. She was great. And then I started putting feelers out again. Like my sort of approach to whatever I'm going to do next is say yes to every conversation. So I talked to recruiters, I talked to friends, I talked to family, like just getting a sense of what was next. And especially at that age, like it doesn't feel like it maybe, but man, the world is your oyster at 28. When it comes to your career, you can really take risks, because even if it doesn't work out, you just sort of figure out what the next thing is. So I was approached by a headhunter who was asking about my interest in an agency position. And I was like, this is an outlier. I think I want to stick with brand side, but I'm still not feeling like my best. Let's give it a go. Primarily because, and again, this is how non-strategic my job decision-making has been historically. The account that they wanted me to work on was Rita's Italian Ice, which is like a quick service restaurant franchise model that's nationwide now, but it's a very Philly thing. And my mom's name was Rita. So I thought, this is a sign from God to take this job for now. I had also coincidentally just met my now husband, who lived in Maryland at the time. And I'm like, let's just do something for a year. We'll see how this whole relationship with this dude in Annapolis works out. And I'll sort of get another view into agency that's a little bit different. And it was a true, marketing creative agency versus PR. Took the job. My problem is when I'm in it, I get into it. So suddenly I was like, opportunity is everywhere here, and we can build this into a world-class agency. And the Rita's account gave me an opportunity to like truly run everything soup to nuts again from a client service standpoint. And also I was quickly escalating within the agency itself and had a lot of respect from the ownership and the leadership team there. So I was able to just keep doing things more and more and more and growing in my career. And then ultimately I decided to move to Maryland, got married, and moved to Annapolis. And the commute from Annapolis to Philly was not like for the long term. And this was before working from home was even a thing, really. So I knew it was going to be short term. Again, I sort of activated my network and ended up finding Karen Zuckerman, who ran HZ, which was what Notorious was before it was Notorious111. Was introduced to Karen. She was looking for somebody at the time with retail and luxury experience. I had both because they had just won the Waldorf Astoria account and the Brooks Brothers account. So I was like psyched. This is right up my alley. Took that position as a account director. So came back onto the account service side. And then the last 15 years have all been through this crazy process where I started as an account director and we were 50 people. And then we grew the agency to almost 200 people. And I observed that we had no strategy function. And maybe we should do more than just like cool creative, and let's make it really meaningful and entrenched. So started a strategy and planning discipline. That was awesome, super fun. And then ultimately really probably elevated into more of an overall agency right hand for the founders, Karen and Jerry, on all things strategy plus. So just making sure that I was helping to sort of pave the path to where we wanted to go. Karen and Jerry made the decision to sell to, at the time, Conan Wolf, which was a PR agency under the WPP umbrella. Just before we were acquired, Conan Wolf merged with Burson, forming BCW. So basically, we were acquired by a large, globally renowned PR agency that was also going through an immediate merger. So it was a really challenging but really interesting time to be a part of that environment, which is an entire other chapter.
Gotcha. So what was going on in your brain then during those mergers or acquisitions? Like, were you staying put? Like, can you walk us through that process for those that might break into an agency that might get acquired if they're an independent? What advice do you have for those folks?
Yeah, it's interesting because this was my first experience being acquired during a merger, and then lots of other M&A ensued over the course of the next 5 years, obviously. What was going through my head was, I love to look through a new open door, right? Like, I had heard at that point in my career, and there were certainly people who were on the HC team that were like, peace out, this is not for me. I'm not into being acquired. I saw it as an opportunity. I really believed in the vision that the CEO of BCW and Karen Zuckerman, our CEO, were mapping out. I felt like there was a clear collapsing of like, an idea is an idea, whether we call it PRable or whether we call it, a campaign. We're sort of making this harder on ourselves than we need to be. So I was super bullish. I was excited to learn more polish, I guess, for lack of a better description, from, what I perceived a WPP agency could put forth. I felt like we definitely needed more rigor around how to drive a business forward. So I was sort of looking for all the upsides. I think the lesson I would always put forth is like, do it. Again, even if it doesn't work out, you're always learning. It's just that growth mindset mentality I feel really anchored to, that no matter what the experience is, I'm like putting it in the bank and I'm figuring out how to be more successful the next time, whatever that looks like. So I think mergers and acquisitions can be incredibly scary. I think they are the most successful in my observation. And this is not breaking news, but like when the cultures are the most aligned. Yeah. And that's something we're bringing to Notorious111 as we look for partners to go to market with on things that we don't do, like paid media. Mm-hmm. If we have a culture click with those teams and they have the same sort of, I can't even describe it any more professionally, vibe, that is the easiest way to bring teams together in a way that makes it feel more natural. I think our challenge as it pertains to being acquired by BCW was that vision that Donna Imperato and Karen had put forward around like, let's not be so PR versus creative. Many clients are not there. So when you're talking to a chief communications officer, or in our case, sometimes even a chief counsel on the PR client side, they're really not looking to be creatively disruptive. They're not looking to stand out. They're actually looking to protect their brands. And those imperatives are very different from what at least our brand studio is looking to do, which is not be irresponsible about it. But if we're going to invest in a story or we're going to invest in airtime, let's make it memorable. Let's make it hit in a way that feels like it matters. And I could not have known that if I hadn't gone through this experience of being acquired by a PR agency. And I will also say, I feel like I went to business school. And I felt like I went to business school when I worked at Ralph Lauren, more on the strategy brand side, I'd say, than anything else. But WPP for us was great through the lens of business fidelity and sort of moving us up the chain in terms of accelerating our understanding of what it is to run a really successful business, but that isn't at the detriment of great creative.
Right. Interesting. So then what happens after that? Walk us through this story a little bit further here.
So, so we were acquired. Things were going well. It was because basically BCW was trying to figure out their own merger and we were held a little bit separate, right? So BCW would call us if they had a creative challenge that they thought we would be right for, but we also just had our own book of business and we continue to grow into our business model as successfully as possible. At the same time, BCW sort of started to build a little bit of a mirror to us internally because it was operationally a little bit challenging sometimes in the holding company environment to work with even a company you own. And then there was like complete world chaos, right? We're talking about COVID. We're talking about a lot of social unrest as it pertained to what was happening in the world. This was the time around George Floyd. There was so much. And then politically, obviously, that narrative was very chaotic as well. Mm-hmm. So I think the world became, I mean, it's always chaotic, but it felt extra chaotic-y between 2020 and 2022. And our clients felt it and our business felt it. And there was a lot of leadership change. So our founders exited. I was asked to take over as president of HZ at the time, along with my two colleagues, Justine Henning and Dina Smith, respectively. And so we had been there collectively, each of us, for 15 years. So it was the right team to take over, but we were very new, again, to what it meant to run a business. We were all account people who had sort of naturally headed in different directions. And we did our best essentially to not just stabilize, but actually grow and build a really healthier version of the agency as we were. And then there was a exit of the CEO on the BCW side. I think I had 6 different bosses over the course of 12 months.
Oh my goodness.
It was a ride, but let me tell you, I learned from every single person, well, you know, for better or for worse. And then when the newest CEO came in, Corey DeBrow, who's awesome, I think he had a real mission in mind in terms of the big picture of what he wanted to do with ultimately what became Burson Global. And we just weren't a logical fit anymore. It was almost like this conscious uncoupling that I completely understood. And so we were presented with an opportunity to figure out if we wanted to take the company back from WPP, and this was, you know, a very unusual opportunity, I would say. And we made the decision to do it. And we were in a position where, you know, this was at this point, January of 2024. So this was just this was actually exactly 1 year ago today, by the way. 1 year ago today, we were presented with an opportunity to buy the company back. And yeah, all I can say is, again, things do happen for a reason. And I do feel like I am, my team will probably laugh at this, but I am, what's the right word I'm looking for? Influenced when certain messages come my way. And we were gaining lots of counsel and advice from trusted friends in the industry. Like, what do you guys think? Should we give it a go? It's a complex marketplace, blah, blah, blah. And one of our most important advisors said, fortune favors the bold. And I was like, fortune does favor the bold. And this has sort of been like the Disney moment I've lived for my whole entire life. I'm like, I've always, from like zoom back 90,000 hours ago when I first started telling you this story, I just always felt like, what do I have to lose by saying yes? And I'm a little bit maybe like a worst case scenario kind of person. Like, what do I have to lose? Okay, what do I have to lose? The company fails, it didn't work, and we go do something else. That's the work. I'm not going to be like, it's not going to be a life or death situation. And so I couldn't shake that, even though I really had very little understanding of what it meant to do this, of what it would mean to actually wholly own an agency, of what it would mean to take an agency that existed and like change the flag, but it's still all the same people in all the same ways. So it would have been easier in a lot of ways to start a company from scratch. Like in hindsight, I still would have done it because, again, the whole like learning thing, but it's really hard to take an existing company filled with people that have been there for years and announce that you're something totally different. And it's not just the name. You're actually something totally different, which means we all have to show up totally different, which means we're going to operate totally differently. And that has been by far the most ridiculous acceleration that I had in 2024, which is what makes this conversation today kind of amazing, because it gives me a moment, like literally while I'm talking to you, to reflect on that, because that is a year, right? Like everything I just told you was 25 years, but that year was crazy. We went from, we're going to close the agency, to maybe we should buy it, to what does that even mean, to, okay, we bought it, to we're still rebuilding it, right? And so functionally, it's this real pivot But while we still have this great book of business and this great clientele, and many of our clients have been with us for, you know, I don't know, 10 years. So it's been interesting.
Incredible. That's a lot. I thought I had a busy 2024, but now I'm very much humbled. I guess I guess now as we understand your story and your background and this incredible journey, really 2024 was a big culminating moment in your career, and it's going to continue to get better. What advice do you have for somebody maybe in this industry or trying to break in this industry as you're looking back in this moment of reflection? Maybe what would you tell your younger self?
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because I also, probably like many 46-year-olds, I'll just say it, um, see a difference generationally, right? Like we're starting to see an entire different mentality to the workforce that's coming in, and an entire different mentality of people that are, have been here for 10 years or so. And then we've got this sort of Gen X group of us who did things completely differently. So what I would say to anybody, regardless, is you will never regret showing up every day with as much drive and optimism as you can muster, even if you have to fake it. Like, even if you have to fucking fake it every single day, that drive, that optimism is seen and it is contagious, and it will never serve you wrong, especially in the beginning of your career. And I think what I really empathize with, especially in this sort of weird hybrid, it's not cool to go back to the office vibe that we're in, the younger folks and the people who are just starting out in their industry, in this industry in particular, especially on the creative and strategy side, like we have to give them more opportunities to look over shoulders, whether it's virtually or whether it's in person. It's really hard to learn how to tell a story and how to take feedback and how to like give really good creative reviews if you're not with each other. And we're learning how to do that. That's hard. So from a like just starting out or considering a pivot standpoint, I think the more you can invite yourself to things or ask to observe or keep asking questions and ask for feedback and ask what you could have done better, like that's how you're going to learn as much as possible, especially in this place where many of us are not in the office with each other on a regular basis. That continuous level of how could I show up better tomorrow is exhausting, but it's kind of not exhausting when you're in your 20s. And I think that is really, really, and I'm putting an age on it, so maybe that's just me, but like, I do think that there is a time to just expose yourself to as much as you possibly can. And I'm not even just talking about our industry. Go see movies, go to art installations, consume every podcast you possibly can, because it's that sort of broader level of curiosity that actually makes for the best marketers. The people who stopped at that weird like doll museum in the middle of their road trip, they make the best strategists, because they really understand uniquely like the fabric of this place where we're trying to ultimately tell people stories to get them to do something, buy something, join something, say something, requires you to have sort of more awareness of what's going on. So that's the thing I appreciate the most, I guess, about my journey, is that I've always said I'm diverse in my journey, and I've appreciated that because I never said no, if it made sense, to whatever was in front of me, because I knew it was going to add to the sort of tapestry.
Love it. Love it. I try to embody that advice often. It's hard sometimes, but you just got to keep going.
Yeah.
I guess then what advice would you have for any of the marketers out there? One thing that you would want them to know about either your agency or about, agency professionals in general. What do you got to say to the brand marketers out there?
I mean, I think two things that are really my driving force right now. One is we should really care about the work we're putting out. Like it is not brain surgery, as we hear a lot of times, but we should take pride in it. And I guess that's where I'm feeling the most passion and the most drive right this second, is let's not do stuff just to do stuff. We've had clients that have said, here's $1 million, but don't make too much noise with it. I would tell them, take that $1 million and disperse it amongst your employee base as a bonus. You'll probably have better outcome than just spending $1 million in the marketplace just to have noise. So for brand partners that we are looking to work with and that we do work with, It's who wants to be a partner in putting out something really great. And that doesn't mean bajillions of dollars. That doesn't mean years of development. It means like really smart, thoughtful, creative work that understands the people that we're trying to talk to. I just don't think there's enough of that. So that's really critical in terms of sort of what is my driving force right now, and just like be better. Like all of us, I really feel this truly as a human. I root for people. Everybody is scared or nervous or anxious or something. Everybody has something. Whether they're your client, whether they're a podcast host, whether they're the CEO of Ralph Lauren. But if we talk to each other like humans and really sort of break down the pretenses that sometimes we bring into the boardrooms and just say, what are we trying to solve? How can we all work together with our superpowers to solve it as successfully as possible with as little bullshit as possible? That's where we really like get to it, is if we are just having human conversations, relating to each other, learning things, breaking down the barriers. I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but I actually really believe it, because if we trust each other in this process where we're spending millions of dollars to go out with a message, especially in this cancel culture vibe, we want it to be right, but I don't think that means we should let it be milquetoast. I think it should be interesting, and I think it should matter, and I think we should feel impetus to not put out garbage. I think it should feel more important to every marketer out there.
Love it. So if there's a marketer listening out there that agrees with this and they want to work with you, what's the best way to reach out?
Best way to reach out is you can just go right to our Notorious111.com website. We have a link right on the website to come say hello to us. And, you know, again, you're getting me, you're getting our chief creative officer, you're getting our team. We're not about the pretenses, and we really are about, I know there's this moment right now for like indies, boutique agencies that will, you know, again, be uncool in a couple more years, but right now it's cool. But there's a reason. It's because you get the people, like you get us. So if you come to us and you want to work with us and you like this idea of having real conversations and getting to the heart of great solutions as quickly as possible, I think we have something. And I'm just like dying to get more at bats so that we can, you know, do more fun stuff. This should be fun, by the way. Like it's serious, but there's a lot of serious. We have to do more playing in order to get to this too. Totally.
And then same website for folks that might want to work with you all.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And these, by the way, these are like all critically important. Like we can't do it without the right people, and we need the right people in order to do the kind of work that we want to put forth. So we need both.
Love it. Well, Katie, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story, all your advice. I feel like there's a lot of parallels between us and our stories so far. So I'm definitely going to stay in touch, reach out, and ask some extra questions. Everybody listening should do that as well. Keep the networking rolling. It snowballs into something larger. Who knows where it'll take you all. But Katie, I know you're going to do great. I'm excited to see 2025 for you all. Thank you again for coming on.
Thanks, Gino. It was fun.
Of course. Thank you.